My name's Prem Shiv, and I belong to the Odisha state of India. Today I'm going to tell you a true incident. Our village is very small and surrounded by forests, and even today, there is very little development in this area. This incident took place a few years ago when we were building our new house. The materials such as bricks, pillars, and iron were all brought in from the city, to which advanced arrangements for trucking had to be made, and thanks to my father, he was able to secure a driver to make the delivery. It was one afternoon when my dad left for the city to meet the driver. All the material had been staged and stored and was ready to be delivered, but the driver was out for another delivery. Hours passed. My father waited, but the driver didn't return. The problem was that there was no other drivers either, which meant that there was no one else that could transport the material to our home. So, my dad was left with no choice but to wait for the driver to come back. The other problem was that my father couldn't return without the material, as the construction was supposed to take place the very next day. After waiting for a long time, my dad decided to call the driver. The driver replied that he was on his way. At last, when the driver arrived at night, he quickly loaded the material into the vehicle and left for our village. My dad was also following him on his bike. Our village was quite far from there, and the roads were in very bad condition. This forced the driver to take it very slowly as he drove along the road. In the middle of their way, there was a long patch of dirt road, which was surrounded by forests. Many say that this particular patch of road is haunted. People say that once a girl was raped and murdered on this part of the road. Apart from that, many other murders had also taken place there. Everyone from my village knows about this road, and nobody goes there, especially during the night. My dad was also aware of it, but it was already too late, and there was no other route which would get them to my house faster and on time. As soon as they got onto the dirt road, the loaded vehicle automatically started to swerve and pulled off to the side of the road. The driver quickly jumped out of the truck to check. He informed my father that part of the vehicle was broken, and they would need to call a mechanic. It was now midnight. My dad told the driver to leave the truck there locked and come with him on his bike to get a mechanic. But the driver refused. He wasn't about to leave his truck there in the middle of the night on that road. My dad asked him several times not to stay there alone, but the driver didn't listen. Then finally, my dad decided to go alone to get the mechanic. Before leaving, he told the driver to stay inside the truck and lock it from the inside. He told him not to get out of the truck for any circumstance. The driver shook his head, and then my dad rode off into the night on his bike. It was almost about 1 hour until my father had secured the mechanic, and both had made it back to the truck. He called out to the driver, but he didn't come. There was no response. The truck gate was locked from the inside. He kept calling him for several minutes, but the driver didn't come out. My dad climbed to the top of the truck and saw the driver was lying there unconscious inside. My dad shouted at him repeatedly, and then after some time, the driver's eyes opened and he finally gained conscious. As soon as the driver got up, he peeked outside the window. His face was frightened with fear. My dad said, "Hey, it's me. I brought the mechanic." The driver, who was visibly shaken, opened the gate reluctantly. He asked the mechanic to fix the truck as quickly as possible. That driver wanted nothing to do with that place and wanted to get out of there as fast as he could. Looking at his pale face, my dad knew something must have happened while the driver was alone, but my dad didn't say anything. Even while the mechanic was repairing the vehicle, strange sounds could be heard from the nearby forest. Faint sounds like someone was crying. After a few minutes, the mechanic repaired the vehicle, and the three of them left that place in a hurry and moved towards the village. By looking at the condition of the driver, the mechanic also decided to go with them to the village, just in case. The three completed the drive and made it to the village. It was the next morning when the driver explained what had happened to him during the night. He said that when my dad left to get the mechanic, he did as he was told and waited, sitting inside the truck. After some time, he felt the urge to pee and instinctively got out of the truck and started peeing at the side of the road. After relieving himself, he stood there for some time, smoking a cigarette. While he was standing there, he heard someone laughing in the distance. But at this hour of the night, who could it be? He was puzzled. He started walking towards the laughter, thinking, who could this be? He searched in the darkness, but there was no one around. The laughter stopped. He started to hear other sounds, like something falling from the tree around him. And then, before he had realized what had happened, he found himself walking deeper and deeper into the forest, looking for the sound. Suddenly, he saw two lit red eyes in the bushes. He thought that it could be some wild animal and decided to start running back towards his truck, but then he heard the laughter again. This time, the laughter was louder, and it was a woman who appeared to be right behind him. When he turned to look around, he saw the woman was tall and running towards him. The woman grabbed his legs and with ease started dragging him far into the forest, but then suddenly vanished. The driver was scared as shit. He quickly stood and started running as fast as he could from there. The only problem was, he was lost, and he couldn't find the direction of his truck. When all of a sudden, there was the sound of a child's cry, which started echoing from inside the forest. He disregarded the child's cry and just started running, and after several minutes, he saw the truck lights. He quickly ran towards them, got inside, and locked the door. But then, suddenly, in a flash, the same woman was now standing outside his truck, staring at him with her red eyes as she spoke to him.
Get out of the truck!
He didn't listen to her. Then the woman asked in an angry tone,
Are you coming out, or do I come inside?
At this point, the driver didn't know what to do. He started to panic, but remembered there was a photo of a god hanging in his cabin. He grabbed the photo and wrapped it in his arms and started to cry. The driver said that woman started banging on the truck and tried to pull all the doors open, but for some reason was not able to get inside. Thankfully, she wasn't able to. Again, he didn't listen and stayed inside the truck. And then she started to plead with him.
Please come out. My baby is hungry. He needs your blood. Please come out.
The driver said that at first, when the lights caught her face, it looked like a normal human, but the further that he would stare, the more it would change into something grotesque and horrific. All of a sudden, the woman started dancing in front of his truck, and suddenly vanished into thin air. Seeing all that, the driver got so scared, jumped into the back, and hid like a rat. A few minutes later, a man came there, walking. He was holding an axe in one hand and a beedi, a country-made cigarette, in the other. At first, the driver saw him, and he thought about getting out of the truck and asking for help, but suddenly, he caught the scent of a decaying smell coming from outside. He looked at the man carefully, who was very tall, and the driver confirmed that the decaying smell was coming from him. The driver knew immediately that this man was also not human. Whatever this man was, he started to make the sound of a goat. The man outside grabbed the side of the truck and started to shake it. The man was so strong that he was able to vigorously shake the truck to the point in which all the iron and bricks could have started falling off the back end. He started growing taller and taller, so much now that he could see the driver from the outside.
Come out. I want a BD.
The driver froze. He didn't budge.
Come out, or I will rip your head off with this axe,
the man said again. And then he walked to the front of the truck and sat there. While he was sitting there, the decaying smell became so strong that it was becoming unbearable. The driver covered his face with a cloth and remained inside the vehicle. And then, after some time, he lost consciousness. Next, when he opened his eyes, he saw my father there with the mechanic. After listening to the whole story, my father and the mechanic were very scared. Everyone only had one question on their mind. What would have happened to the driver if he decided to get out of the truck? What would they have actually done to him? Would that woman have killed him and fed his blood to her baby? Or that man, would he have cut him up into pieces? Whatever would have taken place, they all agreed the driver was too lucky to escape that area alive. However, there are many who are not so lucky. Many who vanished without a trace. Even to this day, no one knows where they disappeared to on that long patch of dirt road.
Well, friends, how'd you like today's story? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for this channel to listen each and every weekday for more real horror stories. We got a ton of amazing real horror stories, and we're dying to share them with you. So until then, stay out of the dark and stay tuned for our next video.